In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care friends and family. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so thankful and grateful that you guys have made space to be here with us today. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I need for everyone to do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibes, go ahead and show some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, I need for everyone to share this out with someone who could use a little healing energy today. And for those of you who this is your first time here, or maybe you just haven't done so already, I'm encouraging you to go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also encourage you to visit our digital home at theselfcareclub.org, where you will find everything you need from affirmative apparel to motivational merch, as well as a ton of free resources to help nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, be sure to drop those green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying, I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Welcome in, Monique. I see you in the building. Hey, girl. Hey. All right, guys. So listen, recently, all over social media, all over the blogs, the group chats, everything, you guys have probably seen people talking about Megan Thee Stallion and her recent breakup. Now, just bear with me. Y'all know we don't do like the toxic energy or the social media, trending topics, but hear me clearly, okay, guys? There's a method to this. I don't want to analyze her relationship. So, we're not here to pick sides. We're not here to, dig into the details that don't belong to us, right? Because that's not healing. That's distraction. But what stood out to me wasn't even like the situation itself. It's the conversation around it, right? It was the tone, the energy, the way that people weren't just reacting, but they were relating. People saying things like, it hits different when you thought you were locked in, or it's not just about him, it's about the life that she should have had. It's deeper than the breakup. It's the future that she already felt secure in, right? And see, that right there, that's what made me stop scrolling. Not because it was shocking, but because it was familiar. Al, welcome in. Thank you for the heart me, right? It felt familiar. And so if we're being honest, we've all had a moment where something ended and it didn't just hurt, but it disoriented us, right? Like mentally, emotionally, and even left us spiritually off balance. Not because we didn't see any signs, but because somewhere along the way, we allowed ourselves to feel safe enough to imagine more, right? We started building mentally, running scenarios, placing or I'll say planning conversations that hadn't even happened yet, seeing a version of life that felt like it was unfolding in real time. It's like we started settling emotionally, letting our guard down, getting comfortable, feeling like, okay, I don't have to question this anymore. It's like we started trusting, maybe even without realizing how deeply. trusting the consistency, trusting the energy, trusting the feeling. And when that thing shifted or ended, it wasn't just like, oh, okay, that didn't work. It felt more like, wait, what just happened? Right? Like, what just happened to everything that I thought was going to be? What happened to the version of me that felt secure here? Why does this feel bigger than just losing this person? Welcome in, Kale. Elevated Awakenings, beautiful. Welcome back. And see, it's because now you're not just dealing with the disappointment, you're dealing with that disruption. The disruption of your thoughts, the disruption of your emotional security. Hey, Don, welcome back. The disruption of, the internal story that you had already started believing. And that kind of experience doesn't just touch your heart, it actually impacts your mental health. It affects how you think, because now you're over analyzing everything. It affects how you process. Now you're stuck between what you felt and what actually happened. It impacts how you trust yourself, because now you're questioning your judgment. It impacts how you show up moving forward, because now you're more guarded, more cautious, maybe even a little more closed off. Hey, Roxy, welcome in. And let's be real, that kind of internal shift, people don't always see it. On the outside, you might still be functioning, still going to work, still showing up, still smiling when you need to. In Meg's case, still out here touring, right? But on the inside, you're trying to make sense of something that didn't end the way your mind had already prepared for. And that disconnect, I think, is where the heaviness lives. So today, this episode is not just about her, right? It's not just about her and her situation. It's about you. It's about me. It's about what happens internally when the future that you imagined, the one that you started believing in, the one that you were emotionally invested in. It's about what happens when that falls apart in real time. And more importantly, how do you take care of your mind? How do you mind your mental when your reality doesn't match what your heart already accepted? So again, this is more than heartbreak. It's mental disruption, right? I think a lot of times we minimize it. We say, I'm just hurt, or I'm just going through a breakup, I'll be okay. But what you're feeling is deeper than that. It's not just heartbreak. There is a mental disruption. This is your mind trying to process a reality that doesn't line up with what what it had already accepted as the truth. And so that creates a tension. Hey Z, welcome back. Because now you're sitting there like, how do I go from this is what we're building to this is over? Your brain doesn't just switch like that. So what does it do? Right? It starts working overtime. Now you begin replaying everything. Right? Now you're, analyzing every single conversation, every moment, maybe I missed something. Right, Don? It's like you're scanning your memory like it's footage. Wait, was that a red flag? Or did I mean something different when I said that? Or did I ignore something that I shouldn't have? And before you even realize it, you're stuck in a loop, right? Overthinking, overanalyzing, overprocessing. And it's exhausting. Not because you're doing too much, but because your mind is trying to protect you by understanding what went wrong. That's what it's designed to do, right? Our brain wants clarity. It wants reason. It wants something it can file away so that way it doesn't happen to us again. But here's the problem. Not every ending comes with a clear explanation. Not every situation gives you closure. So now your mind is trying to create its own answers. And sometimes those answers, they turn on you, right? Got you sitting there questioning your judgment. Why did I believe that? How did I not see this coming? Mara, welcome in. What's wrong with me? Why didn't I catch that sooner? And I just want to tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. You responded to what you experienced. You trusted what felt consistent. You leaned into something that felt safe. And that's not a sign of weakness. That's just being human. Right? And when, that sense of safety gets disrupted, your mind doesn't just go, oh, well. No, your brain goes into alert mode. Now your thoughts get louder. Your anxiety gets higher. Now you feel mentally unsettled, even in moments where nothing is happening. You could be sitting in silence and your mind is still running, still racing, still searching, still trying to make sense of it. Your focus is off. You can't concentrate the same. Simple things feel heavier than they should. Decisions feel harder because mentally you're carrying something that is unresolved. And people on the outside might not even notice it. They just see you moving, but they don't see the mental weight that you're carrying while you're trying to keep it all together. And that's why this matters, right? Because if you keep calling it just a heartbreak, then you'll miss the part where your mental health needs your support too. You don't just need to get over it. You need to process it. You need to sit with it. You need to understand what it did to your mind. Because healing isn't just about letting someone go. It's about helping your mind catch up to the reality that it wasn't prepared for. And until you do that, you will keep feeling stuck in something that has already ended. And let's go a little bit deeper, because I think this is the part that a lot of people don't say out loud. You didn't just like them, right? You didn't just see where it goes. Your mind already went there. How many of you can admit to being in a relationship and you just start dating, but your brain has already planned a future? Like you could look at them and see what your future kids is going to look like. You can imagine walking down the aisle to them, planning the future, right? Because your mind already went there. It moved ahead of the present moment and started creating a future that felt real enough to relax in. And it didn't even feel forced. It just felt natural. And in a sense, I guess it makes sense because like, if I'm dating somebody and I don't see a future with you, I'm not going to waste my time dating you. If I was dating a person and I didn't see them as marriage material, what am I doing? If I'm dating a person and I'm thinking about being intimate with this person, but I don't see myself having children with this person, what am I doing? So it makes sense, right? It feels natural to do that. To start imagining things without even trying to. Just, those little moments at first. What would it be like if this actually worked out? Where could this go? How would this fit into my life long term? Aisha, welcome back. Lady Slay, welcome back. And, before you realize it, those little thoughts turn into like this whole mental blueprint, right? Now you're seeing trips that y'all could be taking, conversations that you haven't even had yet, growth that you haven't even experienced yet. Like a version of stability that felt like it was forming. And here's the part that's important. Your brain doesn't always separate imagination from reality, right? Especially when it comes to emotional experiences. So if something feels real enough, it starts responding like it's real. So now your mind is like, ooh, okay, this is where this is going. Let me get comfortable here. You start settling into the idea of it. You stop questioning as much. You start moving a little differently, subtly, but it's there. And then all of a sudden, you might start prioritizing them more. You might start making space for them in your routine. Start considering them in your decisions, right? Monique said, I say being hopeful, right? You feel a little less guarded because this feels safe enough. And all of this is happening without a full grounded confirmation of what's actually being built. Not because you're naive, but because your mind is responding to consistency and chemistry and emotional access, and is trying to create stability from those three pieces. But see, here's where it starts to get heavy, because when it ends, your mind doesn't just lose the person, it loses the structure it already had started forming around that person. That mental blueprint, gone. That imagined timeline, gone. That internal sense of this is where things are going, gone. And now your brain is sitting there like, wait, we built something here. What do you mean it's over? And that's why it feels so jarring when it happens. Tasha Lee, welcome in. Because internally, you weren't just taking, you weren't just in the talking stage anymore, right? You were already in that future stage. So now you're grieving something that didn't fully exist in reality, but it absolutely existed in your mind. And let's be real, that grief is confusing because part of you knows we weren't even there yet, but another part of you feels like I lost something real. And both of those things can be true at the same time. You're not crazy for feeling that. You're not doing too much. You're not delusional, right? You're just experiencing what happens when your mind invests before your reality can fully catch up. And here's the gentle truth that we got to hold ourselves accountable to. Sometimes we build emotional homes in spaces that were still under construction. We decorate it. We get comfortable in it. We invite our feelings all the way in before checking if the foundation is actually solid. And when that structure collapses, of course it hurts. Because in your mind, you were already living there. Right? It's like your nervous system felt safe until it didn't. And it's not just emotional, right? We have to understand that this is a physical shift too, because your body was involved. Your nervous system was involved in this. See, when someone shows up in a way that feels consistent, even if it's not perfect, just predictable, your body starts to relax. Not because everything is proven, but because it feels familiar enough to soften in. You start exhaling a little deeper. You stop being on guard all the time. You're not reading between every single line anymore. You're not questioning every move. You start to feel like, okay, I could breathe here. This feels good, right? And that's a big deal, especially if you've been through anything that taught you to stay alert, to stay guarded. So when you finally feel that moment of ease, your body leans into it. Hey, Nicole. Right? Your body leans into it and you open up more. You share more. You allow yourself to be seen in ways that you don't just do with just anybody, right? And again, that's not you being naive. That's your nervous system saying, I think we're safe here. But then something shifts. The energy changes. The consistency drops. She Twisted. Thank you for the heart me. Welcome in. That communication suddenly starts to feel different. And now your body is like, hold on, something is off. Right? And again, another part that people don't talk about enough. Even if your mind is trying to stay logical, your body already feels the shift. Your chest feels tight. Your thoughts feel louder. Your sleep might be off. Your appetite changes. You feel anxious and unsettled, maybe a little on edge. And you can't always explain why. Because your nervous system is trying to reconcile two experiences at the same time. This felt safe, and this no longer feels safe. And see, that confusion creates this internal chaos. Because now you're questioning yourself again. Am I overthinking? Am I being triggered? Am I expecting too much? When in reality, your body is just responding to inconsistency, right, Brooks? It goes through like a trauma. And see, inconsistency will always feel unsafe to a regulated nervous system. Consistency creates calm. Inconsistency creates anxiety. So if you went from feeling grounded to feeling anxious, that shift didn't come out of nowhere. Your body picked up on something that your mind might still be trying to rationalize. And instead of trusting that signal, a lot of us override it. We say things like, I'm just tripping. I need to chill. Let me not mess this up. And then we start to silence the very system that is trying to protect us. If you've ever felt that shift before, where something once felt calm, then suddenly feels confusing, I want you to drop a green heart in the chat. Not because you're stuck there, but because you can recognize it now. You can see. And if you've ever ignored that feeling or talked yourself out of it, I want you to type, I felt it. No explanation needed, just I felt it. I see a lot of green hearts, a lot of I felt it. Okay. And I want you to see something. Seeing other people, right? I felt it. And seeing those green hearts is simply a reminder that you're not alone in this. See, a lot of us were taught to second guess our intuition, but your body, it doesn't lie. Just because something started with ease doesn't mean it was meant to continue in peace. Just because your nervous system relaxed there doesn't mean it was your final place of safety. Sometimes it was just a moment, right? A lesson, a glimpse of what you're ready for. But your healing, your peace, your stability, that requires consistency. And anything that makes your body feel like it has to stay on edge, that's not something that you're meant to settle into. That's something that you're meant to recognize and move accordingly. Let's talk about what your mind does next. Because I think that this part right here is where a lot of people get stuck without even realizing it. Once everything shifts, once the reality no longer matches what you thought you were building, your mind immediately goes into like this problem solving mode. It starts searching for answers like it's trying to close a case, right? You begin replaying everything, not just casually, but like intensely. You're going back through conversations, tone changes, timing, energy shifts, looking for the exact moment where things went wrong. You're trying to find that one missing piece that will suddenly make it make sense. And the truth is, your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Because like I said, it wants clarity. It wants closure. It wants to protect you from experiencing this kind of confusion again. So again, it's going to start, asking questions that feel logical on the surface, but can quickly turn inward in a way that's not always healthy. Cars, welcome back. You start asking questions like, did I miss something? And then that turns into, how did I not see this? And then that turns into, what's wrong with me? And now it's no longer about understanding the situation. It's just simply questioning yourself. And that's where that mental spiral begins. Because now you're not just trying to understand them. You're trying to rewrite this entire experience in a way that gives you control over what happened. You start creating theories. You start filling in the gaps. You start connecting dots that may or may not even belong together, just so your mind can land somewhere that feels like an answer. But here's the hard truth. Not everything is meant to make sense in a way that feels satisfying. Not every ending comes with a clear explanation. Not every person is self-aware enough to give you the closure that you deserve. And sometimes that lack of clarity is clarity. But your mind doesn't like that, right? Your mind wants something solid to hold on to. So it keeps going. It keeps replaying, reanalyzing, revisiting, hoping that if it looks at it one more time, it'll finally click. And the longer you stay in that loop, the more drained that you feel. Your energy is low, your focus is off, your mood is unpredictable because mentally you're still trying to resolve something that may never fully be explained. And again, this is the part that doesn't always get talked about, because overthinking isn't just thinking too much. It's your mind trying to create safety through understanding. It's your brain saying, if I can't figure this out, I can't prevent it from happening again. But what if the situation doesn't offer enough information for you to land on a clear answer? That process turns into exhaustion instead of resolution. And so now you're stuck, right? You're stuck in between two realities, the one you experienced and the one you're trying to understand. And instead of moving forward, you're mentally living in that in between, still attached to question, still researching something to settle your thoughts. At some point, healing requires a shift, not from thinking to not thinking, but from needing the answers to accepting the truth. And the truth may, it might be simple. It simply just might be that this ended. It ended. That's the truth. Right? It didn't align in the way that you thought it did. It didn't unfold in the way that your mind prepared for. And while you may never get a full breakdown of why, you do have enough information to recognize that it is no longer something you can build on. That's where your power starts to become back, right? Not in figuring it all out, but in deciding that you don't need every answer to move forward. Because peace doesn't always come from understanding everything. Sometimes it just simply comes from releasing the need to. Sometimes we just have to be honest with ourselves and realize that maybe we gave more than what was actually there to give. Not because we were desperate, right? Not because we don't know better, but because it felt good. And when something feels good, especially, if you've been through things that didn't, you lean into it. You open up to it. You start pouring without even realizing how much you're giving. You weren't just texting back. You were thinking about them throughout your day. You were checking your phone, waiting for their name to pop up. You were adjusting your energy based upon how they showed up. Let's not act like we don't know what that feels like, right? When you start prioritizing them in ways that they haven't earned yet, making space for them, defending them in your mind, explaining away things that don't sit right. We tell ourselves maybe they just busy. Maybe they're going through something, right? Writing your name with their last name in your notebook. Come on now, Brooks. But no, maybe you saw it. And maybe you saw the signs and you just didn't want to accept it. Because accepting it would mean letting go of how good it felt when it was good. In the denial of the truth, yes. And see, that's the part that people don't like to admit. We don't just get attached to people. We get attached to the feelings that they give us. The attention, the consistency. When it's there, the moments, the moments that feel like, yeah, this could be something. So it's like we hold on to those moments like evidence. Like proof that what we're feeling is valid. Even when the overall pattern doesn't match. And of course, now you're invested, not just emotionally, but mentally, energetically. Like you're showing up fully. Showing up fully in something that is only showing up partially. Belinda, welcome back. And see, when that imbalance finally catches up, it hits hard. Because now you feel like I gave you all of this and it still wasn't enough. But I want to shift that for you because I know what it feels like to feel like I gave my everything, but I wasn't good enough. So I want you to know that it wasn't that you weren't good enough. It was that you gave full access to someone who was only offering partial presence. That's not a you problem. It's a boundary problem. And I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying it to wake you up because I know that I've been there too. Emotional over-investment will have you out here ignoring your own needs, silencing your intuition, shrinking your standards just to maintain a connection. All the while you're telling yourself, I'm just being understanding. No, you were being hopeful. Hopeful that it will grow. Hopeful that it would deepen. Hopeful that you were, after everything that you were giving, that it would eventually be matched, that it would be reciprocated. And hope is a beautiful thing. But hope without discernment, that's how you end up drained. That's how you end up confused. That's how you end up sitting here wondering why you feel so empty after something wasn't even that serious. Because it was serious to you. Because you showed up seriously. You felt it deeply. You invested honestly. And there is nothing wrong with that. But going forward, we got to learn how to match energy with evidence. Not just potential. Not just vibes. Not just moments, but evidence. Consistency, clarity, intentionality. Because your mental health cannot keep carrying connections that don't have the capacity to hold you properly. Let me say that again. Your mental health cannot keep carrying what someone else is only casually entertaining. And see that right there, I think that's where things start to shift, right? Not because, we're becoming cold, not in the shutting down, but in the becoming aware of where you're pouring before you're empty. And you're not just grieving them. If we think about it, you're also grieving a version of you that believed. See, a lot of times we think that we're just missing them, but that's not the whole truth. You're missing who you were when you were in it. That version of you that felt open. That version of you that felt soft. That version of you that wasn't second guessing everything. Because in that moment, that version feels lighter. You were more hopeful. You were allowing yourself to believe in something that felt like it had direction, like it had potential, like it had purpose. And so when that ends, it's not just like, okay, they're gone. It's like, where did that version of me go? Because now you don't feel the same anymore. Now you're a little more guarded, a little more observant, a little more hesitant to fall into something without questioning it. And part of you might not even like that, right? Because you miss the ease, you miss the flow, you miss how natural it felt to just be. And I think that here's the part that hurts us in a quiet way. You might even feel a little bit embarrassed. Like, why did I let myself believe that? Why did I open up like that? Why did I go there emotionally? But I want you to know that there's nothing embarrassing about being open enough to experience connection. There is nothing wrong with you wanting something real. There's nothing wrong with, or nothing weak about, allowing yourself to feel deeply. That version of you wasn't foolish. You were available. You were ready, right? That version of you was cooperating from a place of hope instead of fear. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That is something to be protected and refined, right? Because what happens after experiences like this is that your mind tries to convince you to shut down that part of yourself, right? To become colder, more distant, less expressive. To say things like, I'm not doing that again. I'll never love again. I'm not opening up like that anymore. I'm keeping everything surface level from here on out. And on the surface, that feels like protection. But in reality, that is self-abandonment in a different form. Because now you're punishing the part of you that was actually healthy enough to connect. We don't want to lose that part. We just need to teach that version how to move with discernment, how to stay open, but not overexposed, how to feel deeply, but not prematurely. King, welcome in. How to give without losing yourself in the process. Because the goal isn't to become someone who doesn't care, right? The goal is to become someone who cares with awareness. And let me talk about grief for a second, because this grief thing is layered, right? You're grieving the connection, the possibilities, the time you've invested, the emotional space that it took up. Thank you for the heart, me. But you're also grieving the version of you that felt like this could really be it. And when that belief breaks, it can make you question your ability to trust your own judgment moving forward. That's why people start saying, I don't trust nobody. I'm good by myself. It's not worth it. But let's be real. That's not healing. That is hurt talking. Because real healing sounds like, I can still be open to love, but I'm just going to move wiser. I can still want something real, but I refuse to ignore what I see. I can still be me without losing me. Because that version of you that believed didn't die. That version just needs to be reintroduced to boundaries, right? It needs to be supported by clarity, guided by patterns, not just feelings. And when you bring all of those things together, you don't lose your softness, you strengthen it. You don't mourn that version of you like it's gone forever. You reconnect with it, refine it, protect it. Because that version of you, that's the part of you that is still capable of experiencing something real. Just not at the expense of your peace. Your mental health deserves better than confusion. So let's stop dressing this up and call it what it is. right? If you have to keep guessing, if you have to keep decoding, if you have to keep, figuring somebody out instead of experiencing them clearly, that's not connection. That's confusion. And confusion will wear your mind out. Because it's not just your body. Tired of replaying it. Tired of trying to make it make sense. Right? You're tired of asking questions that you shouldn't have to have asked in the first place. And, let's be real. If you got to ask yourself over and over again, something is off. And deep down, you already know it. Right? But instead of honoring that, what do? We start to negotiate with ourselves. We start minimizing it. Saying things like, well, it's not that bad. Right? It's not that bad. They're just too busy. I don't want to overreact. But meanwhile, your mind is like, girl, we are not okay. Right? It is not okay here. But you keep trying to force calm in situations that keep triggering chaos. And that's where the damage happens. Because now it's not even about them anymore. Right? It's about how far you're willing to go to stay connected at the expense of your own peace. You start shrinking your needs, lowering your expectations, and accepting things that don't feel right. Just so you don't have to let go. And, let's talk about something real quick. She ready? Welcome in. What in the turtle? Welcome in. I think that some of y'all are not confused. Some of you are just avoiding the truth. Right? Just avoiding the truth because you feel the inconsistency. You see the pattern. You notice the shift. But you're holding on to those few good moments like they cancel out everything else when they don't. They don't. One good conversation doesn't erase weeks of inconsistency. One good day doesn't rebuild broken clarity. One I miss you doesn't fix a lack of presence. And your mind knows that. Your mind knows that. That's why it doesn't settle. That's why you can't relax. That's why you feel anxious even when nothing is happening. Because your brain is trying to tell you this is not it. This is not stable. This is not secure. It's not safe here. But you keep trying to override it with feelings. And feelings will have you out here suffering in silence, trying to make something work that your mind is already rejecting. That's the truth that nobody likes to sit with. Because letting go means accepting that what you felt doesn't match what you're experiencing. And that hurts. But staying in confusion will cost you way more. It'll cost you your clarity, your confidence, your ability to trust yourself. Because the longer you ignore what you feel internally, the more disconnected you become from yourself. Now, you don't just know if it's your intuition or your anxiety. Now, you don't know if you're asking for too much or finally asking for the right things. Now you're all over the place mentally, trying to hold on to something that won't even hold you properly. And that is draining. And your mental health is not built to carry that long term. So let me say this clearly. You should not have to earn clarity from someone who claims to care about you. You should not have to decode mixed signals like it's a full-time job. You should not feel more anxious than at peace in something that's supposed to feel like a connection. That's not just how it is. That's dysfunction that has gotten normalized. And we're unlearning that right now, right? Because peace is not boring. Peace is not lack of passion. Peace is not settling. Peace is what happens when your mind is not constantly trying to protect you from the person that you're connecting to. If your mind has to stay on alert around somebody, that is not your person. That's your lesson. And I know that might hit, right? That might step on a few toes because sometimes the chemistry was there, the vibe was there, the moment was there, but the consistency, the clarity, the emotional safety, all missing. And without those things, right? You don't have a foundation, you have a situation. And situationships will have you out here mentally spiraling if you let them. So here's the shift. Stop asking, do I like them? And start asking, do I feel stable with them? Stop asking what this could be and start asking, what is this actually showing me right now? It needs proof. Anything that keeps your mind unsettled, that is not something for you to hold on to. That is something for you to learn from and release. Even if your heart ain't ready to yet. Because sometimes your mind has to be led the direction that it should go. And sometimes you have to lead your mind until your heart catches up. And see that right there, that is self-respect. That is grown, right? That's growth. That's choosing you. And when I say choosing you, I mean for real this time. And so again, we've all been here, right? We've all been here before. We saw the green hearts. We saw the I felt it's in the chat. Now let's talk about what happens after everything falls apart. Because we've all had a broken heart. Maybe it was your, an intimate relationship. Maybe it was a friendship. Maybe it was with a family member, right? Let's talk about what happens after it falls apart. Because this is the part that I don't think people prepare us for. That quiet, the space, the moment where it's just you and your thoughts and the reality of what you thought you had. Thank you for the hand hearts. Again, those moments where you're just sitting alone and, thinking about all the things that you don't have anymore. And the rebuilding that has to come, right? Because in that rebuilding, it doesn't start pretty. It doesn't start strong. It starts with you sitting in the discomfort of, okay, now what? Because your routine has shifted. Your mental space has shifted. Even the way you move through your day feels different. Things that used to feel normal now feel off. Because you already made space for something that is no longer there. So now you got to reclaim that space. Not rush to fill it, not distract yourself from it, but to actually sit with it long enough to understand what needs to be rebuilt. And let's be real. A lot of people don't rebuild, right? We don't rebuild, we replace. We jump into something new. We stay busy. We avoid being alone with our thoughts because rebuilding requires honesty, and honesty sounds like I moved too fast emotionally. I ignored what I felt because I like what I saw, or I gave more access than I should have. And who wants to admit that, right? Because that's not an easy thing to admit. But that's where your power is. Because once you're honest, you can rebuild intentionally, not reactively. So now the question becomes, who do I need to be moving forward? Not in change who you are kind of way, but in the protect who you are kind of way. And so that looks like slowing down your emotional attachments. Not because you're scared, right? But because you're paying attention. It looks like letting your actions speak louder than potential. Watching consistency over time, not just how it feels in the moment. Asking questions instead of assuming. Getting clarity instead of filling in the blanks yourself. And most importantly, learning how to sit with uncertainty without rushing to create a future just to feel secure in it. Because that's what's got us here in the first place, right? We tried to make something feel solid before it was actually stable. So now we do it differently. Thank you for the follow, JC. We don't rush to build, we observe. We don't rush to attach, we assess. We don't rush to trust, we allow it to develop. Butterfly, welcome in. And I know that might feel uncomfortable. Like my girl said, it's scary. All right. Especially if you're used to leading with your heart. But I want you to understand it's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming intentional. Because you can still be loving. You can still be open. You can still be soft. But now you're also aware. Now you are grounded. Now you are choosing yourself in the process. And, let's talk about that internal rebuild, right? Because it's not just about how you deal with other people. It's about how you come back to yourself. You rebuild that self-trust by honoring what you feel in real time, not after the damage is done. You rebuild your confidence. You rebuild your confidence by reminding yourself, I didn't get played, I learned something. Right? You rebuild your peace by no longer entertaining anything that disrupts your mental stability. And slowly, you start to feel like yourself again. But not the same version. A wiser version. Right? A more grounded version. A version of you that still believes in love, but no longer believes in it blindly. And here's the truth that might hit a little different. That future that you imagined, it wasn't wrong. It was just not with the right person. That vision is still valid. Yes, Cars. Have an amazing day. And yes, you guys can always catch the replay on YouTube. Same name, Room to Breathe Project. So yes, thank you so much for asking, and I hope you have an amazing day. So again, that vision that you had is still valid. That desire is still real. The capacity you have, the capacity you have to love, to build, to connect is still there. But now you're going to pair it with discernment. You pair it with patience. You pair it with boundaries. So the next time something comes into your life, you don't just ask, does this feel good? You ask, is this consistent? Is this clear? Is this something that I can build over time? Because you're not just rebuilding just to experience the same hurt cycle again. You're rebuilding to create something that actually holds you. And that takes time and intention. That takes choosing yourself over and over and over again. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, even when you miss what you thought it could be, even when your heart tries to revisit something that your mind already released, that's the work. And each and every one of you are capable of it. So don't rush this part. Don't skip this part. Because how you rebuild determines how you experience what's next. And this time we're building from clarity, not just emotion, from truth, not just hope, from alignment, not just attraction. And that right there, that is how you come back stronger without losing yourself in the process. So again, you're not crazy. You just need to reconnect with yourself. I think that some of y'all are sitting with this quiet question in the back of your mind. Can I trust myself after this? And I want to speak directly to that. I want you to know that you're not crazy. You didn't make it all up. You didn't imagine everything. You felt it. And what you felt was real. What you experienced was real. But here's where we get it twisted. Just because something felt real doesn't mean that it's stable. And that's the part that we have to separate. Right? Because a lot of us are, I think that a lot of people walk away from situations like this not just hurt, but it disconnected us from ourselves. And so now you don't trust your judgment. Now you second guess your intuition, right? You're out here questioning your ability to read people, read energies, read situations. And that's dangerous because instead of learning from the experience, you start doubting the very part of you that was trying to guide you the whole time. So let's go back for a second. There were moments where something felt off. There were moments where you paused, moments where your spirit nudged you like, girl, pay attention. But what did you do? You overrode it. You rationalized it. You gave it the benefit of the doubt, not because you're foolish, but because you wanted it to work. So now on the other side of it, you're like, I knew something wasn't right. Why didn't I listen? And see, that's where the work is. Not beating yourself up, but rebuilding your relationship with your inner voice. Because your intuition didn't fail you. You just didn't follow through, right? You didn't follow it all the way through. And that's okay, because we're all human, right? That's a very human thing for us to do. Thank you, butterfly. But moving forward, we don't silence that inner voice anymore, right? We don't explain away our discomfort anymore. We don't override ourselves to maintain connections because that's how you lose yourself. And we're not doing that again. So now the focus shifts. Not how do I avoid getting hurt, but how do I stay connected to myself no matter what I'm in? That means when something feels off, you explore it, not just ignore it. When something is unclear, you ask, not assume. When something is inconsistent, you observe, not excuse. That's self-trust. That is self-respect. That is mental alignment. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to control the outcomes. You can't control how people show up. You can't control how things unfold. But you can control how long you stay disconnected from yourself trying to make something work. And when you're connected to yourself, even if something ends or it shifts or something falls apart, you don't fall apart with it. You feel it. You process it. But you don't lose yourself inside of it. And that's the real win. So if you are sitting here right now feeling like I should have known better, let me shift that for you. Welcome in, Ghost. You do know better now. And that awareness, that's your power. That's your growth. That's your next level of discernment. So I don't want you to walk away from this experience feeling like you failed. Walk away knowing that you're more in tune than you've ever been. And from that place, you move differently. You choose differently. You protect your peace differently. Not from fear, but from alignment. That is how you come back home to yourself, for real this time. So let's bring this all the way back around, y'all. Let's close things out. Because again, this conversation was sparked by, what we're seeing in the media with Megan Thee Stallion, right? And this breakup that's going on. But what made it powerful, what made it worth sitting with, is how so many people saw themselves in it. Because her story might be public, but the feeling, that part is personal. The moment where something ends and you're not just hurt, but you're mentally thrown off. You're trying to figure out how you went from feeling secure to feeling uncertain, feeling grounded to feeling like your thoughts are all over the place, from believing this is real to asking yourself, was any of it real? And see, that's the part that we don't talk about enough, the mental aftermath. No problem, Roxy. Have an amazing day. Right? Let's talk about that mental aftermath. The part where your mind is trying to catch up to the reality it wasn't prepared for. The part where you're replaying, rethinking, refeeling everything while still trying to show up in your everyday life like nothing has shifted. And if we're being real, that is heavy. But here's what I need you to take with you from this conversation. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a version of a future you already made peace with. You lost a sense of direction that you had already started walking in. You lost the emotional security you had already settled into. And it's okay to grieve that fully, without minimizing it, without rushing yourself through it, because that grief is not weakness. It is evidence that you allowed yourself to feel something real. But now comes the part that matters the most. What do you do with that experience? Do you shut down? Do you close yourself off? Do you tell yourself, I'm never going to do that again? Or do you take what you've learned and come back wiser, not colder? I see you, Jasmine. Right? Because that's the assignment. Not to lose your softness, but to add discernment to it. Not to stop loving deeply, but to stop investing deeply without clarity. Not to stop believing what's possible, but to start making sure that what you're believing is actually being built in reality. And hear me clearly when I say this. Just because something felt aligned doesn't mean that it was assigned to stay. And just because it didn't last doesn't mean it wasn't a reflection of what you're ready for. That vision that you had, that desire for something real and consistent and stable, that didn't come out of nowhere. That came from you, which means it's still possible. Just not with what couldn't hold it. So don't walk away from this thinking that you lost your chance, because you didn't. You got clarity. Thank you, Lettuce Rose. Welcome in. Right? You got clarity. You got awareness. You got a deeper understanding of how to love, how to, how you attach, how you process. And that right there, that's what's going to guide you differently next time. Now, before we close out today's episode, I want to leave you all with a little extra love and light. As always, I am here to remind you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Thank you.